Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of sources and try to extract the essential nuggets you need to be truly well-informed. Today, we're diving into a really relevant topic, the rise of medications like semaglutide. You probably know them as Ozempic or Wegovy, often linked just to weight loss, right? But our sources today, they suggest there's, well, a much deeper story unfolding, something beyond the physical.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got a fascinating mix of material here. There are excerpts from something called the Hollis Semaglutide Manifesto, which is quite provocative. And then we have these field notes from a client titled The Day the Food Craving Didn't Come. Really evocative. Plus, a reflection piece on what Dan Hollis taught me about emotional hunger.
Hmm.
So our mission really is to unpack what happens when that physical noise, that constant hum of hunger, quietens down. And, a different kind of conversation starts up. One about emotional hunger, identity, and a journey that really goes way beyond just getting a prescription.
Okay, so that right there challenges the common idea, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That these drugs are just a kind of magic fix for weight loss. So, if it's not that simple, what is it about Dan Hollis's philosophy that's so, well, different?
What's really striking is how he reframes it immediately. He's very clear. Willpower, he says, was never really the problem.
Mm.
He argues that, our biology, our emotions, these really deeply ingrained habit loops, they're kind of stacked against us. And key to his thinking is understanding how these drugs, like semaglutide, it's a GLP-1 receptor agonist, technically how they actually work. They essentially help our brain register fullness better. They reduce the sort of reward signal we get from food,
Yeah.
and they slow down digestion. So it's not just boosting your willpower. It's more like recalibrating the actual signals your brain is sending about hunger and satisfaction.
Right.
And that is what creates this kind of unique quiet window he talks about, which allows for deeper work. So his method focuses on insight, structure, tools, meeting your biology where it is, instead of just demanding more willpower. He genuinely calls it a human journey, not a drug journey.
Okay, that makes sense. It's working with the biology. And we have this story from Kate next, which sound like a real eye-opener. You mentioned her notes, the day the food craving didn't come. She said something like, walked past the pantry, and for the first time in 20 years, nothing reached back. Wow. What did she find in that moment? And what exactly does Dan Hollis mean by this quiet window?
Yeah, Kate's story really gets to the heart of it. It raises this huge question. What happens when the physical hunger quiets down, but the emotional hunger is still there? So Kate, she's 46, mother of 3, 2 months into using semaglutide. Things were going as you might expect, 7 pounds down, side effects were minimal, blood sugar improving. On paper, it looks great.
Like it's working perfectly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the thing that really struck her, the core of her experience, wasn't the number on the scale changing. It was that specific craving, the one that always showed up, just didn't. That pantry moment. And this is what Dan Hollis calls the quiet window. It's that moment, he says, where the food stops answering your questions and the real ones start talking. The real questions.
Yeah. And he points out there's this unexpected emotional weight that can come with this. He actually talks about the grief of losing the thing that numbed you. Even if that thing, that coping mechanism was slowly, unraveling your life. Kate described feeling like a ghost in her own kitchen, like the house was suddenly too quiet. And she said, everything feels like truth now, which is pretty intense.
Wow, truth. That's powerful and probably a bit terrifying too. So many of us, myself included, probably have used food as an emotional crutch sometimes, stress eating, comfort eating. When that physical drive fades, what does Dan Hollis say is really behind those cravings that might still linger? What are they really about?
Well, this is central to his teaching. He says emotional hunger often sounds like a craving, but it's actually, it's more like a question, a need asking to be seen.
A question. Yeah. Think about it. We often mistake being tired or lonely or maybe just overwhelmed and overstimulated.
Yeah.
We mistake that feeling for physical hunger. And so we head to the pantry looking for, connection maybe, or comfort, or just some clarity.
Right, reaching for something tangible.
Exactly. And one of the sources puts it really well. When food stops being your emotional scaffolding, you don't just feel lighter, you feel exposed.
Exposed, yeah, I could see that.
And Dan Hollis doesn't shame that pattern at all. He just names it. He helps people see that emotional hunger isn't some kind of weakness. It's more like wisdom misdirected.
Wisdom misdirected. I like that framing.
So for someone who might be feeling a craving right now, maybe listening to this, the very first step he suggests isn't restriction, it's curiosity. He says, pause, not to punish myself, but to get curious. What am I really hungry for? Is it connection? Is it comfort? Maybe just quiet, clarity, He's very clear. Semaglutide doesn't solve the emotional hunger. It just clears away the biological noise so you can finally hear the question underneath it.
Yeah.
It's the silence, he says, that lets you find the real answer. Or maybe find the real question first.
Okay, so the medication opens this door, this quiet window. And the real work, as he puts it, starts then when the physical noise fades. So what comes next? How does he help people actually build those lasting changes, the ones they need beyond just the initial drop on the scale to make it sustainable?
Right, because that initial phase can be deceptive. This is where his idea of scaffolding becomes really important. He warns about what he calls the trap of really fast weight loss without thinking about metabolic pacing. Because losing weight too quickly, as we know, can sometimes slow your metabolism right down, reduce muscle mass, and actually make long-term success harder.
Which defeats the whole purpose.
Precisely. So the goal has to be sustainable pacing, not just with food, but with habits, with progress itself. And there's a critical point in his manifesto. The real work begins after the medication.
Hmm.
Because semaglutide isn't likely a forever drug for most people.
Mm-hmm.
And those old patterns, the appetite signals, the emotional triggers, they will reactivate eventually if you don't have a plan.
Because you need new habits.
You need habits that can, as he says, live beyond the injections. So the focus shifts. It's less about finding some burst of motivation to eat healthy today. It's more like, okay, what's one small, consistent action I can take today that builds momentum? It's about building that scaffolding, recognizing the pattern, not just restricting or punishing yourself.
That sounds much more manageable, actually. Less overwhelming. So for someone listening who maybe feels like they've tried everything before, maybe feels like they've failed many times, how does Dan Hollis approach that past experience? What kind of support does he offer that might feel different this time?
That's a really important point. He offers this idea that he frames as, you're not starting over, you're starting right.
Starting right.
Yeah, meaning this time you're starting with tools, both the medication, potentially, and the mindset tools that actually align with how your body and brain work. And maybe starting with people, a community or guide who really get it, who understand the biology and the emotional piece. And underpinning all of it is this core message. There's no shame here, only process.
That alone must be huge for people.
Absolutely. He really emphasizes that the individual isn't broken or lazy or undisciplined. They're often working against a biology they were never really taught about. And, let's be honest, against a culture that sometimes profits from confusion around weight and health. So he frames his approach as a conversation, not a prescription. It's fundamentally about your relationship with food, with your body, and, yeah, with the people guiding you. It's designed to offer a map, a guide, and a community. And Kate's journey, those little moments she noted, they really illustrate this process idea, don't they? Like a Wednesday where she noticed she didn't snack her way through feeling sad. Or a Thursday where she chose tea instead of opening that second bottle of wine.
Small wins, but significant shifts.
Yeah, exactly. And that Sunday walk she took, not for exercise, but because it felt like a conversation with her future self. She's not suddenly fixed, but she's present. She's there, in the quiet, listening, learning. That's the process.
Wow. What an incredible deep dive this has been into these really profound shifts that can happen. When you address the physical side of hunger, it seems like it really does open up space for much deeper emotional and, well, psychological work. It's really clear this isn't just about a medication, is it? It feels more like an invitation to a different kind of self-discovery.
Exactly. That's precisely it. The Dan Hollis approach really highlights that the true strength of these medications, maybe their biggest potential, isn't just suppressing appetite. It's the unique opportunity they create, a chance to rebuild identity, behaviors, emotional awareness from a quieter place. It becomes about separating that true biological hunger from what he calls signal confusion and learning to meet those cravings not with impulse, but with insight, seeing them as messengers, really.
Messengers. Asking that question, what am I really hungry for? Oh. So for you listening right now, if you've ever felt that kind of subtle, maybe unsettling quiet after a big change in your life, or if you've ever found yourself genuinely asking, what am I hungry for when I'm not physically hungry? Then maybe, just maybe, you're starting to enter your own version of that quiet window. And the question then becomes, when the usual noise fades away, what deeper questions might be trying to land for you?